Alright, in this video we are going to look at the vertically changing text box that changes both horizontally and vertically. I did a tutorial a while back on the dynamically changing text box, but that only did it based on the length when we had multiple lines, or should you have multiple lines, this thing did not grow or get taller automatically. And then also I did post a video just yesterday actually about a bug, and I have fixed the bug, or I found a workaround for this bug. So go back and watch both of these videos before you dive into this. But the bug I was having is that, these right here, as you can see, the boxes are changing nicely now. And the fix is that we want to have the RSS text and then this box that goes around it, we want them in two separate pieces. If I put them inside the same overlap group, that's where the jacked up stuff happens. So keeping these separate and everything stays quite nice. Now another little thing too, you may notice sometimes the height of the box is like right over top. You don't have any gap, whereas sometimes there might be a slightly bigger gap like what we have right here. Okay? If you're okay with that, then stick out for this tutorial. I'm going to show you how to do all this. So let's go ahead and go into KLWP. And before we dive into everything, I'm going to show you a few pieces over in globals. So using a monospace font, I mentioned this in my other tutorial. The monospace font will ensure this works pretty nice pretty much every time, because monospace fonts have the same spacing between each character. Now, I mentioned an adjust length and a multiply length. These were mentioned in the previous tutorial as well. I will mention those some more in this tutorial. The height, I think I called it adjust height or ADJH or something like that. Well, this has a little bit different purpose now. The height is something that we can fine tune, and once we get it to where we like it, something like that, you can leave it there. But again, depending on the size of your font, how you have your text wrapping, these are things that you will have to adjust. Now, this stuff that you see up here is to serve as a way of showing you how many characters you can have in your monospace font on a single line before it wraps to the next line. Now, if I come up in here and change this, but before I do that, let me just copy this because I want to use it again. And let's just type something in. So today is Tuesday. All right, now if I check this, it's going to change what I have up here, and you may notice that the box has gotten shorter and it's not as wide as it was. So everything is changing dynamically. Now if I come down here and type a little bit more, the weather is very nice here. Okay, let's see what happens with that. Notice, okay, now it's gotten taller, and now it's a certain width, and this width is not going to get any wider because I have my font, my text item set up such that it is set to a fixed width. And that's something important that you're going to have to do here as well. And if I come here and type a little bit more, when I am done with this tutorial, I'm going to spend some time outside. That's exactly what I'm going to do because it's very nice here today. But as you can see, the box is getting taller. The width is not changing because I have it set to that certain piece. It's not going to get any wider because the text is wrapping around it. Now, as I go through these, you may notice this is like the RSS feeds, and as you can see, it is changing dynamically. So the manual global variable here, this text global, is just so I can show you how this stuff does change. Now I have a RSS, whatever RSS you're using. If you want to put a box around it, I recommend putting your RSS in a text global. That way you can get this information. And we also need to find the length of this. How many characters do we have in each little RSS feed? And this can definitely change, obviously. Like if I come to this one and I go back and look at this RSS, now it's a lot longer. It has more characters to it. All right. And what else do we have? Okay, count, that's just something that's tied into this. It's a list global variable. That way we can cycle through various RSS feeds. I've mentioned that in previous tutorials. Go check out some of my RSS feed tutorials. But very important is ideal, okay? The reason why ideal is important, because ideal is going to be not necessarily the number of characters, but it's going to be the ideal piece that's going to help us get our width, and it's also going to change our height too. Let me bump this up to 24 because 24 does not look bad, especially if I come back up here to manual and let me talk about this. I'm interested in knowing how many characters can I fit on a line before it wraps over to the next line. So just go along with this for 1 second. 0, whoop, no, I don't have to do that. I should be able to paste this, right? Well, I can't do it, or can I? Yes. Okay. Think of this as one character, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, blah, blah, blah. Here's 20, and then here's 30. I didn't actually type in, 2, 1 for 21 and 2, 2 for 22. So hopefully you can understand this. And what I'm noticing here is that right around 24, because if we go 10, 20, right around 24, with the way I have my fixed width, around 24 characters is the most that I can fit on a line. Okay? With that in mind, if I come back in here and take this stuff away, let me take away my multiply L. Actually, let me cut this. Let me cut that back up and put this to wherever I want it. So right about there looks pretty good. And then the adjust length that I mentioned in the previous tutorial is a little bit of fine tuning. Notice this here does not change it nowhere near as fast as this does. So the multiply multiplies it quickly, and then the fine tuning comes in here if you want it to be a little bit wider. Okay? Now watch this down here if I adjust my ideal. So if I had the ideal set to 24, and you may say, that looks like the number of characters that you can hold here. Well, that's where we're going to run into a problem when I go into and show you all this math that's going on. Because right now it looks great, right? But some of these RSS feeds are going to get cut out, as you can see right there. That one gets cut out. And the reason why is because even though the number of characters in this RSS feed right here, the number of characters meet the mathematical pieces that I'm doing here. However, notice like this word limited, it could have went up here almost, but that word was too long to fit up there, and I don't have any hyphens incorporated into this. I don't even want to try to do that right now unless you really want to do that. I don't even know how to approach that. There may be a function for it. But by this word coming to a new line, and then this same thing happens here, this RAPIDE, it almost maybe could have fit, part of it could have fit up here. So we're losing some of those characters out of those 24 characters per line. Well, the way to compensate for that is to create this number global variable. I'm calling it ideal. And if I just bump this down and bump it down, now this box grows to where I want it to grow. You may notice, now we got this stuff outside of it. Well, creating all these number global variables, if I bump this up, let me actually bump this down to 0 and let me adjust my multiply. If I adjust that to about 26 and then do some fine tuning, that right there looks pretty good, right? But once you have it set, and I think by you bumping this ideal, now if you have a really, really, really long text thing that you want to box around it, you may have to bump ideal down a little bit more, okay? So let's look at what we have going on in regards to all this math and stuff like that. RSS length is the number of characters in that RSS feed. That includes spaces and everything. There's 68 pieces. And then we have ideal. Ideal I have set to 22. Notice this thing will change as I change ideal. So that's all it is length there for teaching purposes. And then what I'm doing here is I'm dividing these two pieces. Let's see if I can show you that on the computer screen. No, I can't. Let me minimize this. I'm going to close that. So let's take the length of this thing and let's divide it by ideal. So 68 divided by 22. So notice that's exactly what we got there. But what I always want to do here is I want to round this up. And basically what this is going to do for the most part is it's going to tell us how many lines we're going to have in our piece. So notice if I round this number up, we always round up. I know 3.09 rounds to 3, but this is called the ceiling. You automatically take that number and you round it up to the next integer. So notice 4, well 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's change it. Okay, so 61 divided by 22 is that. If we automatically round this up to the next integer, that's going to be 3. As you can see, we have 3 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As you can see, the way we take the length, this is a lot longer RSS feed. We divide it by that ideal. We round it up. This is very important mathematics that we're doing here. Basic arithmetic, but it's important in us getting this set up correctly. So hopefully you get the idea there. This is a short one, 2 lines. And it's all of these global variables are working together to make this, to achieve what we're trying to achieve here, which is a vertically changing text box. So all of that said, how do we get it to work? if I go into, let's go to globals, and let me come and change this manual thing again. Let me make it full screen. So let's type in a short one line, literally, a short one-liner. And that should, okay, so notice a short one-liner is not as wide as this, and it's also, the box is right around it perfectly. Okay, that's our manual. So I'm gonna come in here to manual and overlap group, and I have both the rectangle and the text set around it. Well, the text is nothing but whatever GV manual is. All right, what you have to go ahead and do here, set your global font to that monospace font, fixed width, and whatever fixed width you want, go ahead and figure out where you want it now. That way when you start tying these things in, because if you go and change the width, or you go and change the size, or even if you change the alignment, it will have an effect on it. So I recommend getting this set up. You can tie number global variables into this too, but I think that would have been a little bit too overwhelming for this video. So I have it set to 580. Basically, I don't want this width to get any wider than those red things right there, that red piece there, and then the size I have it set to 40. All right, and that's all we have inside of there, nothing too crazy. Now the rectangle is where we have some functions and stuff going on. So I have a rectangle and I have a stroke set to it. You can put the stroke wherever you want, but obviously that was too much, so I had it set somewhere around 5. Now this is where we want to be careful. So the width, now the way I have my global set up, I called it the length, but then I have my height. So when we have one line, when we have a single line like we have right here, we don't want the width of this box to always be out here. We want it to, you know, adjust based on the length of this piece. Well, we have to factor that into it. And what we also have to do is when we go to a second line, or if we go to a third line, or a fourth line, or a fifth line, that's when I want the width of this box to stay at this width right here. So let me go back and let me make this manual maybe 3 lines. So we're going to go back into our manual, a short one-liner, and we're going to make it a longer one. So here is a longer sentence that will cover multiple lines. This will set our width, which I have referred to as length, to a set width. That will not change as long as we have multiple lines. So we're definitely going to have multiple lines here. Boom. All right, now that width is always going to stay there. That's as wide as it's going to get. Okay, so hopefully you do see the idea there. Now if we have one line, the width will get shorter depending on how long that one line is. But if we have multiple lines, it's going to be to a set thing. So here is the code for that. All right, I'm gonna explain it to you. I'm gonna tell you what's going on, and then you know, I'm not going to delete all this because I'm trying to remember all my globals and everything. But basically, I've already talked about all these various globals back at the beginning of the tutorial. But basically, what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the length of whatever that thing is. The length of whatever I typed in manual. Earlier I had, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I changed it to a short one-liner, and now I have a long thing in there, that long paragraph nearby. I want to find the length of that thing. So if we're doing a text converter, if the length of that thing is less than GV ideal, which is clearly not, but if it was less than GV ideal, I want the width, the length of this rectangle to be GV multiply L times the length of whatever that manual piece that I have typed in there. So GV multiply L times the length of this piece, and then I want to add on my little fine tuning piece that I talked about, my GV adjust length. However, what if, okay, so that's if it is less than that. Well, what if it's not less than that, which in this case it's not? Well, what we want to do there is we want to take GV multiply L times GV ideal plus GV adjust length, or adjust L. And what this is here, this is that thing that's going to keep it at a set width. Whenever you have multiple lines, and all this stuff's getting tied together, whenever you have multiple lines, this right here is going to keep it at that set width, and it's never going to get any wider, and it won't get any shorter either. So that's the code for the width or the length of that text box. So it's never going to change. Now, watch this right here. If I go back and I change this back to a one-liner. So I'm going to go change my manual. Let's select all. And let's just do short. All right, now watch how short the box is going to be. Okay, and now that's where the second part of this code's getting tied into it. So if I go back into manual, I go to rectangle, and then I go to width, now this condition's being met. Or the length of GV manual is less than ideal because the length of this thing right now is what? Short. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Short has 5 characters in it. So that 5 is less than GV ideal. I think ideal I had somewhere around like 22 or something. So we want to take GV multiply L times the length of that word or sentence or whatever, and then we want to do our fine tuning plus GV adjust L. So that's the way that's getting incorporated, and that's the way that length is changing. Well, what about the height? We have something kind of similar going on, but we're using GV height now. So notice I had pretty much the same code to start off with. If the length of our manual, whatever we have typed in, if it's less than GV ideal, then we want to do GV height, period. That's that GV height, that number global variable that adjusts the height. We don't have to do anything extra crazy about that. However, a few minutes ago, well, what if this thing here, what if the length is not less than GV ideal? Well, what we have to do there is where we have to do this division and the ceiling thing I talked about. Well, here's the code to do that. We're going to take math utilities, ceiling. We want to take the length of our piece, whether it be RSS, but in this case, it's the length of manual. We want to divide it by GV ideal, and then we want to multiply it by GV height. This is what's going to let the height go from, maybe think of it like this. From 1, it's going to double its height, it'll triple its height, it'll quadruple its height based on whatever we get when we do this division. Because this division is always going to give us an integer, mu ceiling, blah, 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 right to there. This is always going to give us an integer, and we're going to multiply that times GV height. So essentially, you're going to be doubling the height, tripling the height, quadrupling the height, etc. And there's the formula for your height. And just like that, that's how we get it. Those are the two pieces that we need to use there. Anything extra crazy going on here? No, I don't think so. But as you can see, that is changing. Now, instead of me explaining it through or to you step by step, the important piece to note here is this. To get this one to work correctly, notice the box is getting taller. This box never gets any less, or the length doesn't get shorter, the width doesn't get shorter because we have multiple lines. So I had the same code going on, but again, remember back at the beginning I said I had these two pieces, the actual RSS text, the text, and then the box. These are not sitting inside of the same overlap group. This is how I fixed that little problem I had earlier in the video I posted yesterday. So RSS, I had the same fixed width that I have up here. Now, y'all, if you've watched this far, I should have mentioned this sooner, but if you're going to do text boxes around multiple things with different fonts and different sizes and different fixed widths, you're going to have to create these globals for each individual piece. Because obviously your ideal will be different each time. Your adjust height or the height, the GV or the length, all those pieces will be different. So you have to create them for each one. But to make it easier here, I had the exact same width, the exact same height. I don't have a certain number. Let me slow down here. I don't have a max line set, and I have this also set to center because all of these pieces can change how you use your other number global variables. But all I have inside of here, I got my global font, and then notice I'm just using GVRSS, that text global variable. Okay, so here are the codes for the box. RSS box, it's a rectangle, same stroke. And now the width is a very similar code, but now I'm not looking at the length of manual anymore. What I'm looking at now is the length of that RSS feed. But everything else is pretty much the same. Now something I should mention too, I think we can get away with it. And okay, and I did tie it in here. I meant to mention this. You may notice I have a less than or equal to. You can do less than or equal to. It shouldn't, I don't think it matters. I'm just gonna come back in here and change this one to less than or equal to. If it does cause an issue, take it away. But basically that's gonna keep it on one line should it be the 24 characters. So what I went and did real quick was I went back and I changed all of those less than GVI deals. I changed them to less than or equal to. It does change the way the mathematics works out. Like now we have 11, but clearly we don't have 11 lines. So leaving them less than will probably help you line up your lines better. But again, that still involves the fact of whatever you have your text width set to, whatever you have your text size set to. There's a lot of factors going on in here. But what I did is if I did all of those being less than or equal to, I had to come back in here, adjust my ideal quite a bit. I adjusted it down to 10. I think a while ago it was at like 22. And if we come in here and adjust length, set this down to 0, use your multiply L to figure out about where you want your length to be, somewhere around there maybe. And if you want to fine tune it a little bit, the height, get your height where you want it. You may say, okay, that's too much space. Well, I hope you'll be okay with that. But here we have a little bit of gap, but you want to make sure you can go through all these pieces. And as you can see, as I go through all of these, that one has a bigger gap in between it than this one does here. But nonetheless, everything still works fine by doing less than or equal to versus just less than. It's up to you. Use whichever one you want to use. And this fully completed thing, it works now. It doesn't seem to be bugged anymore. This is going to be shared on KLWP Toots. And there you have it. That is a way you can have a dynamically changing text box that grows both horizontally and vertically now. And that's it for this video. I hope it helped.